David Whitaker was 54 years old, but people often mistook him for someone younger, not because of his appearance alone, but because of the way he carried himself. He lived in a cozy townhouse in Portland, Oregon, with a small back garden that he tended almost religiously. Life had been a mix of wins and hard lessons for him. He'd been married once, divorced for over a decade, and in those years, he had learned far more about relationships than he ever did in his 20s or 30s. He never set out to be some kind of dating expert. In fact, after his divorce, he assumed his romantic life was behind him. What he didn't know then was that the very way he approached people, especially younger women, would set him apart in ways most men his age never experienced. His turning point came in the most unexpected way. On a rainy Tuesday afternoon, he ducked into a quiet coffee shop to escape a sudden downpour. That's where he met Rachel, a 28-year-old writer who was sitting at the corner table, typing furiously on her laptop. David noticed she was struggling with a stubborn lid on her water bottle, and without overthinking, he walked over and offered a hand. She smiled, thanked him, and they began to talk. What started as small talk about the weather turned into an hour-long conversation about her latest project, a novel she was trying to finish. David didn't dominate the conversation. He simply asked questions, listened intently, and laughed at the right moments. Later, Rachel admitted that she rarely felt that kind of connection with men, especially older ones. Most either talked down to her or tried too hard to impress her. David, on the other hand, treated her like an equal. It was that simple. But to Rachel, it was rare. That moment stayed with David. Over time, through more interactions with women like Rachel, he began to recognize a pattern. There were certain ways he carried himself, certain habits he'd picked up over the years, that seemed to resonate deeply with younger women. These weren't tricks or calculated moves. They were a reflection of how he'd grown as a man. He realized most older men never bothered to learn them. One night, David attended an art gallery opening hosted by a friend. The place was filled with people in their 20s and 30s, chatting over wine and small plates. He noticed his friend Mark, also in his 50s, trying to impress a group of younger women by boasting about his investments and luxury vacations. The women nodded politely, but quickly drifted away. Meanwhile, David wandered to a corner where a young painter named Lily was explaining her latest work to a small group. He asked her what inspired her to use certain colors and listened as she shared the personal story behind it. He didn't interrupt, didn't make it about himself, just gave her the space to share her world. Lily later told him, "I don't usually open up to people I've just met, but you have this way of making me feel like what I'm saying matters." David realized then that his habit of being genuinely curious wasn't just appreciated, it was rare enough to stand out. Another time, David was at a jazz lounge when he met Brooke, a 30-year-old travel blogger. She was with friends, but they struck up a conversation at the bar. When she mentioned she had just returned from Thailand, most men would have used it as a chance to brag about their own travels. Instead, David leaned in and asked, "What was the most unexpected thing you experienced there?" Brooke's eyes lit up as she described a hidden waterfall she'd stumbled upon. It wasn't just what David asked, it was how he listened. He wasn't scanning the room for someone better to talk to or distracted by his phone. He was there, fully present, making her feel heard. That alone set him apart from the majority of men, regardless of age. Over time, David's approach to life became second nature. He never chased validation or tried to prove himself. He dressed well, but not in a way that screamed for attention. Dark jeans, a tailored blazer, polished boots. He maintained his health, not to look young, but because he valued feeling strong and capable. His confidence wasn't loud. It was the kind that made people feel at ease around him. One summer evening, David hosted a backyard dinner party. Among the guests was Olivia, a friend's younger sister who was visiting from San Diego. She was 27, witty, and sharp. As the night went on, she gravitated toward David, not because he was telling the loudest jokes or dominating the conversation, but because he seemed to enjoy himself without needing the spotlight. When the party ended, Olivia told him, "You're one of the most relaxed people I've met. It's like you know who you are, and you don't need to convince anyone." David smiled. That was the truth. He wasn't performing for anyone. Years of life experience had taught him that people are drawn to authenticity. He never played games, never pretended to be someone he wasn't. And when he liked someone, he made it known in a respectful, straightforward way. As months turned into years, David could look back on dozens of such moments, on park benches, at wine tastings, during volunteer events, where his way of being had sparked genuine connections. The women who connected with him weren't impressed by grand gestures or flashy wealth. They valued how he made them feel, seen, respected, and appreciated without pressure. By 54, David understood that only a small fraction of older men practiced these habits. Most either dismissed younger women as shallow or approached them with a sense of competition or pretense. He knew that what made him different wasn't a secret formula, but a commitment to living with presence, curiosity, and quiet confidence. And as he stood in his backyard one crisp autumn evening, sipping a glass of wine under the fading light, he realized that this was the life he wanted. Not one of constant pursuit, but of meaningful connections with people who valued him for who he truly was.